Great to be with you right now, everybody in your group, as you have probably by now connected with one another and caught up with the week and how life is going. Maybe if you've got kiddos, how the kids are going, wrapping up school, how work is going, looking forward to summer, nicer weather. And as you've settled now, I want to remind us just for a few minutes before you look into the questions that are provided for you about what the subject matter was that governed the sermon on Sunday. You'll remember our text was Matthew chapter 5, verses 21 to 26. And the subject matter that Jesus was dealing with is anger. And what Jesus says in this text is anger is the equivalent to murder. He says, "You have heard that it was said to those of old, 'You shall not kill.' But I say to you, anyone who is angry with his brother will be liable to judgment." What Jesus is doing is he's contrasting the interpretation, the application, and the instruction of the law by the scribes and Pharisees who thought, well, I haven't killed anyone. I've never actually committed murder. That was what was taught, and Jesus is contrasting that, or taking the law, and he takes it and he brings them to the spirit behind the law. Anyone who is angry in his heart has already become guilty of breaking God's law. The sixth commandment, thou shalt not kill. And this, of course, puts us in a great predicament, doesn't it? It put everybody in a great predicament. Everybody who heard this originally on the mountainside, in the crowd, the disciples, the scribes and Pharisees. Well, maybe not the scribes and Pharisees, but we all have been like, oh my goodness, I'm in trouble. I've broken the law. Though I haven't technically murdered anybody, I've broken God's law. And I am guilty and deserving of God's wrath, God's judgment before the council and the hell of fire. And so what Jesus then points to is what we must do. He says, therefore, if you remember, if you're offering your gift, if you're worshiping or sacrificing at church or helping out in any way, volunteering, if you remember that your brother has something against you, that you've lost your cool, you've become angry, insulted, or name-called anybody, the premium or the most important thing before your sacrifices is reconciliation. Because that is who God is. He's the God of reconciliation who gave his son for us to be reconciled to him. And so his disciples, you and me, must bend that reconciliation out as an act of worship. And that takes priority for Jesus before anything else we do in church. That takes priority. And that's difficult. Reconciliation, remember we talked about this, is so difficult because it's encircled by anger. The only reason we need to be reconciled is because we're angry with someone. And Jesus says, don't delay reconciliation, but do it quickly. Do it quickly. And so here's my question to you. Is there someone in your life that you're angry with, that you've been angry with for a long time? Jesus' call to us as disciples is do the hard thing and be reconciled. And you'll remember we talked about 5 ways or 5 points of application, if you will. To do that, we've got to posture ourselves in a beatitude kind of way. Go back and read through the Beatitudes. Is my heart right? Am I coming into this reconciliation process from a beatitude-like heart and an understanding of the gospel? Secondly, make a list. Make a list and make a plan. Make that phone call. Third, have hopeful and yet realistic expectations. You may do your part in dealing with confessing your anger. You might not get the response that you want. It's nevertheless, go for it. And you may not be the best of friends afterwards, but you've made peace with one another. That's what reconciliation means. And you should have hopeful expectations that when we are obedient to Jesus, miracles happen. It's amazing what God can do when we're obedient to Him. And also remember, be encouraged. The more you do it, the more we practice this as disciples of Jesus, the easier it becomes, the more natural it becomes, and we find ourselves, I'm not angry anymore, or I'm less angry than I was a year ago. And I'm able to handle things a little better. And then finally, just remember the severity and remember the seriousness of harboring anger according to Jesus. And if we harbor it too long, it erodes away at our relationship with God, and it erodes at our relationship with other people. And so I hope that we as a church can continue to press into reconciliation as just who we are and away from anger, because it's no longer who we are, because we're disciples of Jesus under His rule and reign, and in His kingdom we live differently. We're ministers of reconciliation. God bless you. Enjoy your time together.